Week 6 is now in the books, so let's dive into some players that I'm looking to trade for right now. Starting with, I think, the first quarterback that I've highlighted in this video all year. It's Lamar Jackson. Now, the reason I don't really advise trading for quarterbacks is because it's a weird onesie position with a lot of fluctuating performances and values that if you didn't draft an elite guy early, you're probably just streaming unless you happen upon a Dak Prescott or a Baker Mayfield or a Drake May type of performer who has grown and elevated into more of a weekly starter. But Lamar Jackson is different. We know Lamar Jackson is different because he was the game-breaking QB1 last year in fantasy and was also top 5 in 2023. And this year, he's the quarterback 3 in points per game, including the week he got hurt and only put up 11 games. Remove that game, and he's the quarterback 1 averaging 27 points per game, which is 3 points per game higher than the current quarterback 1. Now, the main reasons to go after Lamar right now are, number 1, according to our strength of schedule tool, he has the second easiest rest of season schedule among all quarterbacks, and the other guys who have great schedules are guys like Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel and Tua and Aaron Rodgers, JJ McCarthy, Bryce Young, Michael Penix. Like, none of those guys are guys that you trust as weekly starters, even if they have good matchups, and they're certainly not league-winning difference makers like Lamar Jackson is. So Lamar definitely sets himself apart there when you're looking at rest of season schedules and who has really good schedule moving forward. And reason number 2, the person who drafted Lamar early really hasn't had him for 3 weeks. He got hurt in week 4 and put up a dud because of it. Then he missed the last 2 games and will miss this week, week 7, because of a bye. So that team who has Lamar might be kind of desperate for some points and a win this week because Lamar is back in week 8, and that's where you come in. You can't really lowball a Lamar Jackson offer, especially because most of them know Lamar is going to be back after next week. But if you can entice them with a good starting quarterback plus something, they could go for it. For example, do you have some flex option piece to pair with a Jalen Hurts or a Jaden Daniels to go get Lamar Jackson? Or maybe it's adding something to Baker Mayfield, who is good, but currently doesn't have Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Emeka Egbuka also just got hurt, and he's going to miss a couple of weeks. So what is Baker's outlook for the next few weeks? Maybe it's Justin Herbert, who had a phenomenal first couple of games, but then really hasn't been great since. So maybe you can take advantage of people remembering Herbert's start and the name value for him to add to him to go get to Lamar Jackson. Maybe you picked up Jackson Dart and you can sell high off of his hype right now. Maybe you drafted Drake May super late and you can sell off his hype right now. Maybe you don't trust Daniel Jones or Justin Fields or Caleb Williams as your forever QB1 and you can add to them to go get Lamar Jackson. The only quarterbacks I'm okay not moving for Lamar right now are Josh Allen, because obviously, Patrick Mahomes, because he's producing like prime Mahomes this year, and he's also getting Rashee Rice back this week. And if you want to keep Dak Prescott because he's also been balling and get CeeDee Lamb back either this week or next, I'm also fine with that too. But Lamar Jackson is pretty much a top 3 quarterback rest of season, and you're also buying him during his bye week, so you won't have to worry about that moving forward either, like you would for some other quarterbacks, which is another advantage you have over most of your league mates. It is Lamar Jackson. You are going to have to pay up for him, but I think that is worth it right now, especially given his second half schedule. Now moving on to the running back position, this is an actual buy low right now in Bengals running back Chase Brown. Brown has hurt a lot of people this year, myself included, because I thought he was going to be the dude this year. And we were drafting him in the early 3rd round, even the late 2nd round in drafts, and he just has not lived up anywhere close to that draft price at all. And even when I'm saying to go buy Chase Brown right now, even that isn't because I expect his production to go back to what we saw in 2024. I think that version of Chase Brown is pretty much dead this year and won't be back until either Burrow is healthy again next year, if even at all. But I do believe there are signals that could mean a better second half of the season than the current RB33 in PPR formats, to where maybe Chase Brown is more of a top 24 back or a fringe top 20 guy moving forward. I was very encouraged by the Bengals' performance this week with Joe Flacco at quarterback. He was an immediate upgrade for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins this week, and while the fantasy game log wouldn't show it, I do think he was also an upgrade for Chase Brown. For the first time this season, Brown averaged over 4 yards per carry, actually 4.7 yards per carry on 9 rushing attempts. He didn't see a lot of volume because the Bengals were immediately losing and they had to play catch up through the passing game, but on the limited carries that he got, he looked the absolute best he had all year. So hopefully, as Flacco gets more integrated into this offense, he can make the offense better than what it was under Jake Browning, and that would mean good things for everyone in Cincinnati, including Chase Brown, especially if Cincinnati is going to be playing easier opponents moving forward. You see, for the first 6 games of the year, we have actually learned that most of the Bengals' opponents have been very good against the run, and some also have great offenses that force Cincinnati to abandon the run early. Cleveland, Minnesota, Detroit, Green Bay, Denver, Jacksonville. 5 of those 6 opponents are currently top 12 in fantasy points allowed to the position, meaning they are extremely difficult to run on and score fantasy points. It's been one of the hardest schedules for any running back in the league, but especially one who lost their elite starting quarterback early this year, have no offensive line, and are playing in a terrible offense overall. But moving forward, Cincy actually has the 6th easiest strength of schedule for running backs remaining. They have matchups against the Bears, Bills, Dolphins, Cardinals, Ravens twice, and Steelers twice. They do have 2 hard matchups against the Jets and the Patriots, who are top 13th against the position right now, but everybody else is way easier than they've already faced. Pittsburgh is 18th, Buffalo is 24th, Arizona is 25th, Miami 27th, Baltimore 30th, and Chicago is 31st against the position. Again, I'm not saying that Chase Brown is going to do a complete 180 and all of a sudden be a top 10 running back that we thought we were getting when we drafted him, but when you consider the situation of immediately losing Joe Burrow, playing one of the hardest schedules in the league, to now having a potentially decent offense under Joe Flacco against one of the easiest schedules in the league, there is room here for improvement and brighter days ahead, especially when you factor in the price to go get him, which has to be next to nothing because people really hate him right now. If you can pivot off of Nick Chubb or Woody Marks, Zach Charbonnet, Ramondre Stevenson, Kareem Hunt, or maybe even Tony Pollard, who has the 3rd hardest schedule remaining for running backs, and the Titans also just fired their head coach, I would rather have Chase Brown than all of those guys for the rest of the year. Maybe you can move off of Michael Carter or Bam Knight if you added either one of those off of waivers, because Benson is probably going to be back in a couple of weeks. Same thing goes for Rachaad White because Bucky's going to be back soon. Jordan Mason because Aaron Jones is going to be back soon. Flip Kenneth Gainwell while the 30-point game is still fresh in people's memories, or just move a depth wide receiver that you're still holding on to for whatever reason. Chase Brown should be very cheap right now because nobody wants him. They might actually be happy to sell him for anything right now because it's better than just dropping him for some better waiver wire pickup. So see how low you can actually go buy Chase Brown and see if his second half really is better than the first. The next buy low running back to trade for right now is Isiah Pacheco, because I think we're finally starting to see him return to form like we saw at the end of 2023 and beginning of 2024 before he got hurt. In that Sunday night game against the Lions this week, I watched Pacheco and visually saw a running back who looked extremely healthy and was extremely dominant and physical on his runs against a pretty good running defense. I also noticed that he was on the field a lot more than he was to start the year and getting more work than he had to start the year. And when you look at his game log, that was 100% the case. Week 6 was a season high in snaps at over 75%, a season high in carries with 12, and a season high in rushing yards with 51. He didn't find the end zone on Sunday and still really hasn't yet on the ground. He has 1 receiving touchdown back in week 4, but he hasn't scored a rushing touchdown yet this season. But I think that's part of what makes Pacheco such a great buy right now, because he has underproduced, he hasn't lived up to his draft cost, he hasn't really scored touchdowns to balance out a lack of yards, so he's probably very cheap to go try to buy. But all of the signals are there and things might be starting to align for Isiah Pacheco to return to his workhorse role that he had prior to getting hurt last year. It hasn't been an efficiency thing with him this year like it's been with Chase Brown, but really just a volume thing, as he's only been above 10 carries in 2 out of the 5 games prior to this Sunday night. And maybe that's starting to change. I'll also add that the Chiefs have the 7th easiest rest of season schedule for running backs in the NFL right now. They get the Raiders this week, then they also get games against Washington, Buffalo, Dallas, Houston, Tennessee, and the LA Chargers, who just got torched by Devon Achane on Sunday. They also have 2 matchups against Denver, who are top 5 in points allowed, but Denver was also the team that gave up over 200 yards and a touchdown to Jonathan Taylor and 130 yards and a touchdown to Amari and Hampton, so they can be beat by good rushing attacks. It's a very green schedule moving forward, and now might be the perfect time to buy an ascending running back on a great offense right before his volume really increases. I would be using all of the same running backs that I just mentioned for how to buy Chase Brown, but I would also add players like DeAndre Swift, Alvin Kamara, Jalen Warren, and David Montgomery as good pivot options over to Isiah Pacheco. I would also be tempted to trade down from the name value of Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne for Isiah Pacheco Plus, especially if you need some bye week or injury fill-ins right now. The final player I'm looking to buy this week is Steelers wide receiver DK Metcalf, who has shown a very nice floor of 11 to 12 PPR points with the upside of 20-plus point weeks with bigger yardage games and touchdowns. 2 weeks in a row now, we have seen Metcalf making some big plays as the Steelers wide receiver 1, eclipsing 90 yards in 2 straight games and scoring a touchdown in 4 straight games. I honestly do wonder if the Rodgers-Metcalf connection is really starting to take hold, and we see some massive spike weeks over the second half of the season because of that. But we could also see spike weeks for DK Metcalf from their rest of season schedule, as Pittsburgh currently ranks as the 4th easiest remaining schedule for wide receivers in the league, which we all know really just means for DK Metcalf because the Steelers don't have anyone else to throw to on that team behind him. Starting this week in week 7, Pittsburgh gets the Bengals twice, the Colts, Bears, Bills, Ravens, Dolphins, Lions, and the Cleveland Browns again in Week 17 championship games, who Metcalf just beat for 95 yards and a touchdown on Sunday. Even their hardest matchups on paper are the LA Chargers, who have been reeling lately and have given up some big games to Cortland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, and Jalen Waddle the last 3 weeks, and the Green Bay Packers, who got torched by George Pickens in Week 5 and also got beat by Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on Sunday. It really is a great remaining schedule to attack, especially when it benefits a player as good as DK Metcalf, but not an elite player that is going to cost you an arm and a leg to get. Plus, we have the added benefit of already being past his bye week, so you don't have to worry about that for DK Metcalf for the remainder of the year. What I would be doing to buy DK Metcalf is seeing if I can flip any of the 3 Chargers wide receivers, especially Keenan Allen in case he starts to slow down from his age over the second half of the season, and Ladd McConkey off of 2 really good weeks. I would be trying to pivot off of Chris Olave, Michael Pittman, and Wan'Dale Robinson, all very good players and the wide receiver ones on their teams right now, but I don't think the ceiling is there for them weekly like it is for DK Metcalf. Plus, the Giants have the hardest remaining schedule for wide receivers, the Colts have the 3rd hardest remaining schedule, and the Saints are somewhere like 12th hardest. Maybe now is the time to honestly pivot off of A.J. Brown or add something to Devonta Smith to get out from under the Eagles pass catchers. Sell high on Kayshon Boutte, Jameson Williams, and Josh Downs off of big week 6s. Or, I really hate saying this, but maybe you consider selling Emeka Egbuka for DK Metcalf plus, considering Ibuka's hamstring injury that's probably going to keep him out for a couple weeks, plus then a week 9 bye, plus when he returns, will he be productive as he has been with Mike Evans healthy, Chris Godwin healthy, Jalen McMillan healthy, Bucky Irving healthy? I just really don't know. I don't want to start with Emeka Egbuka. It's not something that I would be looking to do, but if you get a good enough piece with DK Metcalf to trade off of Emeka Egbuka, it might be worth it right now. But if you're looking for some help with defenses or kickers to stream this week or rest of season, check out Caleb's videos from earlier this week right up here.